The unexpected collision. I never considered myself a woman defined by luck. Hope Richardson, that's the name I carried like a promise I was still figuring out. I had routines, responsibilities, and dreams quietly simmering under the surface of a life that, by most accounts, looked ordinary. Teaching surfing at Morno Valley Beach was my sanctuary, my quiet rebellion against a world that demanded conformity. Tuesday morning was perfect. The sun spilled molten gold across the swells. 6-foot waves rolled in rhythmically, each crest a whisper of freedom. I waxed my board while counting the days until rent was due, 30, according to Marcus. $3,000 might as well have been a mountain, and yet, for those precious hours on the water, numbers didn't exist. Emma, my 8-year-old student, squealed as her board finally caught a wave. The sound was pure joy, a melody that made me forget the mounting bills, the looming lease, and the gnawing anxiety that never left my shoulders. Teaching wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline. Watching her stand, wobble, and ride the surf with growing confidence reminded me why I clung to this life so desperately. By noon, though, the weight of reality settled back on me like wet sand. I needed perspective, a rare break from the saltwater and sun. The Ocean View Golf Resort was my chosen battlefield. The manicured greens and pristine fairways mocked my chaos, each perfect lawn a reminder that life outside my surfboard was ordered, calculated, and cruelly indifferent. I gripped my driver with a force that spoke more of frustration than skill and swung with everything I had. The ball arced into the sky with a satisfying whoosh until another ball struck it midair. Both plummeted like startled birds. I turned toward the source, and there she stood. A woman in crisp white, hair pulled back with clinical precision, green eyes locked on mine with an intensity that unsettled and intrigued me all at once. "Impressive trajectory," she said, her voice calm yet edged with authority. "Terrible timing," I shot back instinctively. "My timing's perfect. Your aim's off," she countered and then smiled. Not a casual smile, not the polite acknowledgement of a stranger, but a smile that dared me to meet her challenge. "Lena," she introduced herself, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, the handshake of someone accustomed to controlling rooms and people. "Hope Richardson," I replied, feeling a jolt of recognition that something significant had just begun. I should have walked away. I should have returned to my surfboards and bills, but there was something magnetic about Lena, a pull I couldn't explain. "9 holes?" I asked before I could second guess. She nodded. Her swing was precise, each movement a study in elegance and control. Mine was instinctive, chaotic yet effective. We matched each other stroke for stroke, neither yielding. "You're not from around here," she observed near the 7th tee. Her voice was curious, analytical, the kind you hear in courtrooms, in judgments, in decisions that change lives. "Federal courthouse downtown," I said lightly. She nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. The final hole was a test of patience and precision. Her ball rested 6 inches from the pin. Mine was twice as far. "Closest to the pin pays for drinks," she said with an audacious smirk. I lined up my shot, aware of her gaze, and hit. The ball rolled perfectly, caught the edge, and dropped. "Damn," she whispered. Admiration lingered in that single word, and I felt an unfamiliar warmth bloom in my chest. By the 19th hole, whiskey neat in hand, the formalities of first encounters dissolved. "So, what does a surf instructor do when waves are flat? Worry about rent?" she asked. "And you sentence people to prison," I replied with a laugh. "I've never been on a surfboard," she admitted. "Maybe we should fix both those problems," I suggested, and the air between us shifted, thick with possibility. 3 days later, Lena appeared at the golf course. The severe ponytail was gone. Her hair fell in loose waves that caught the sun. Her white blazer had been replaced with soft blue, emphasizing the depth of her green eyes. I noticed a subtle shift. Control was still there, but so was vulnerability. "Ready for round 2?" she asked, pulling clubs from a car worth more than my year's income. The competition intensified. We traded leads, studied angles, predicted movements. Yet for the first time, I saw the woman behind the judge, someone searching for more than rules, more than precedent. Our conversation wandered from golf to life, to the decisions that shaped us. "Why surfing?" she asked. "My grandmother," I said. "She surfed when women weren't supposed to, said the ocean was the only place she felt completely free." Lena nodded, understanding beyond words. "My father wanted me to be a judge, family legacy, but I wanted to matter, decisions that changed lives." By the 18th hole, we were tied. I hit from the sand trap, the ball curved impossibly, dropped on the green, straight into the cup. She breathed a surprised, "No damn way," and in that breath something shifted. Admiration merged with desire. Over drinks, she admitted she wanted to learn surfing. "Something outside my world," she said, her voice low, urgent, magnetic. The next morning, she arrived at Morno Valley Beach, nervous yet determined, clutching a waterproof notebook. "Forget everything you read," I said, helping her into the wetsuit. "First rule, respect the water." The ocean didn't care about titles, precedence, or power. The ocean demanded trust. And in that first ride, when Lena tumbled, laughed, and came up grinning, I realized we were both learning, not just surfing, but each other. By the third week, the lessons became more than sport. They became moments of connection, vulnerability, and quiet desire. "Freedom's addictive," she said one morning, gazing at the horizon. And I understood. Life, like the waves, was unpredictable, and for the first time, I wanted to ride it with her. Currents of change. The morning fog clung to Morno Valley Beach like a soft curtain, the sun barely visible through the mist. The ocean was calm but alive, each swell whispering promises I wasn't yet ready to name. Lena appeared at the edge of the sand, her figure outlined by the soft dawn light. She wore a fitted wetsuit, the kind that revealed curves without being boastful, and her hair, dark and wet from an early paddle, framed her face in loose, shining strands. There was a tension about her today, a tightness in her shoulders that spoke of controlled nerves, of someone unaccustomed to vulnerability. Yet, as soon as her green eyes met mine, the guarded precision that marked her courtroom persona cracked, just enough for me to see her as she truly was, a woman searching for freedom, for release, for a space where her mind and heart could breathe. We began with the basics again, balancing on boards in shallow water, feeling the push and pull of tides. Lena approached every movement as she approached life, meticulously, analyzing angles, testing limits, searching for the perfect method. But the ocean, unlike any courtroom, did not submit to calculation. A wave would rise unexpectedly, knocking her off balance, testing her reflexes, daring her to let go of control. Each fall was a small lesson in humility, each successful ride a revelation in trust. I guided her through the rhythm of the water, teaching her to feel rather than judge, to sense rather than plan. And with each lesson, a quiet tension built between us, the kind that is as fragile as a wave cresting under a morning sun. The air felt charged, as if the sea itself approved of what was unfolding, a dangerous chemistry neither of us could name aloud. By the time the sun fully rose, casting sparkling diamonds across the rolling waves, Lena had progressed beyond my expectations. She rode each wave with a daring grace, her laughter echoing across the surf, unrestrained and intoxicating. There was a freedom in her expression, a raw joy I had rarely seen outside the courtroom. And as I watched her, something inside me shifted. The struggles of bills, leases, and deadlines faded, replaced by a profound awareness that life, much like the sea, demanded courage, and the courage I now felt was not mine alone. It belonged to both of us, entwined in ways neither surfboards nor legal briefs could contain. Later, sitting on our boards and letting the waves carry us, we talked about everything except the things we knew we shouldn't. Our voices mingled with the sound of water, soft, intimate, and brimming with unspoken understanding. Lena confessed her frustrations with the rigid world she inhabited, the suffocating expectations that followed her like shadows. "Every case, every decision, it's like I'm moving pieces on a board, but none of them are mine," she said, eyes fixed on the horizon. I told her about the pressure of keeping my surf school afloat, the constant struggle against tides and debt alike. In those moments, our worlds, though wildly different, felt aligned, two currents running parallel, occasionally colliding, shaping one another in unseen ways. The third week marked a turning point. Lena began taking risks, trusting instincts over logic, letting go of her habitual control in the water, and eventually in moments with me. The first time she wiped out completely, swallowed by a wave and dragged beneath, her scream had startled me. But when she emerged, sputtering, laughing, her hair plastered to her face, there was a raw vulnerability there that took my breath away. "Again," she demanded, eyes blazing with determination. And I realized then that she was addicted not just to the ocean, but to the feeling of being fully alive, unbound by precedent or expectation. Our connection deepened outside the water as well. Coffee in quiet cafes, long walks along deserted piers, and stolen afternoons when the world seemed to pause for just us. Each encounter was a study in contrasts, her disciplined, polished presence clashing with my untamed, chaotic spirit, yet somehow blending into a harmony that was entirely new. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting amber light across the beach, she brushed a strand of hair from my face, her fingers lingering longer than necessary. "Hope," she whispered, her voice low and unguarded. "I don't know how to do this, how to be not professional, how to feel." I could only smile, taking her hand in mine, feeling the electricity of a touch that neither titles nor responsibilities could contain. "Neither do I admitted. "But that's the point. That's why this matters." By now, our surf lessons were no longer just about technique. They had become rituals of trust, of discovery, and of courage. Every wave conquered, every fall survived was a lesson in life itself. That control is an illusion, that fear is temporary, and that the heart is stronger than logic if only given permission to leap. And though the tension between us remained unspoken in many ways, the small gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a lingering gaze, a shared laugh, carried more meaning than any words could. Lena was changing me in ways subtle and profound, challenging me to confront my own fears and desires, daring me to imagine a life beyond the boundaries I had long accepted. Then came the invitation, a charity gala, one of those pretentious legal affairs where etiquette was weaponized and status was currency. Lena asked me to accompany her. The idea terrified me. I, a surf instructor, would walk into a room dominated by power and influence. And yet there was no hesitation on her part, only certainty, as if she knew that the next step in our story demanded stepping into discomfort. The preparation, the dress she sent, the care she took in helping me navigate a world foreign to me, all of it was an extension of her trust. And in accepting it, I felt a connection deepen, the kind that was both exhilarating and terrifying. When I saw her that evening, poised in black elegance, hair swept up to reveal the strength of her neck and the curve of her shoulders, I realized the extent of the transformation. Not just in me, not just in her, but in the bond between us. In her eyes, I saw admiration, desire, and an intensity that could not be tamed by rules or decorum. As she guided me through introductions and conversations, I felt an unfamiliar confidence, a sense that, in some strange way, I belonged here, at least for tonight, because I had been seen, fully, by someone extraordinary. And as the night stretched on, with whispers and judgments circulating around us, Lena found me on a terrace overlooking the city, the lights shimmering like scattered stars. She stepped close, her voice a mixture of urgency and vulnerability, admitting she couldn't stop thinking about me. I felt my own heart pound in agreement, and for the first time, the line between mentorship, friendship, and something far more dangerous blurred. Our kiss, tentative at first, grew urgent, desperate, a collision as powerful as any wave we had conquered together. And in that stolen moment, with the city spread below us like a constellation, I understood the truth that would define everything to come. That life, love, and purpose were currents we could not fully control, and surrendering to them was both terrifying and necessary. Crossing boundaries. The days that followed our terrace encounter were charged with a quiet intensity, an invisible current that seemed to follow us everywhere. Each morning, the ocean became our shared sanctuary, yet every stolen moment outside of it was fraught with an exhilarating tension, a dangerous kind of intimacy that neither of us could name aloud. Lena approached our surf lessons with a renewed confidence, yet there was a softness in her movements that had not been there before, as though the act of surrendering to the waves had allowed her to surrender, even temporarily, to something far more potent: connection, desire, the risk of human closeness. My own body reacted instinctively, heart racing with every brush of her hand on my shoulder, every accidental collision as we paddled out into the surf. It was electric, intoxicating, and impossible to ignore, yet I constantly reminded myself of the walls that existed between us. Her courtroom, my struggling surf school, the life obligations that loomed like cliffs on either side of a narrow path. Despite these invisible barriers, we began sharing pieces of ourselves that no one else would ever see. She spoke of the oppressive weight of expectation, the suffocating precision required to navigate her role as a federal judge, and how often she felt her personal desires were in direct conflict with her professional identity. I told her of the late nights at the surf school, of the relentless worry about rent, students, and bills, of the fragile hope that somehow perseverance could carry me through. In these exchanges, a strange symmetry emerged. Two worlds colliding, one disciplined and controlled, the other untamed and chaotic, yet both striving for meaning, for freedom, for moments of authenticity. Every glance, every laugh, every shared silence became a secret dialogue, a testament to the unspoken connection that grew between us like a hidden tide. One evening after a particularly grueling day in court, Lena called me, her voice unusually soft. "Can you meet me at the beach? I need to see you," she said. The urgency in her tone carried an undercurrent of something more, something fragile and desperate. When I arrived, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting an amber glow across the sand and the sea. She was standing at the water's edge, wetsuit abandoned for casual attire that hinted at elegance without effort. Her hair was damp from an earlier paddle, and her eyes, those penetrating green eyes, were wide with a vulnerability that only I had ever been privileged to witness. "I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted, her words spilling into the evening air like a confession too long withheld. "Every decision I make, every case I hear, you're there. Even when I try to focus, my mind drifts to this." She gestured vaguely, encompassing everything we had shared, every stolen moment on the waves, every brush of her hand against mine, every lingering gaze that defied propriety. I stepped closer, the sand cold beneath my bare feet, and placed a hand over hers. "Neither can I whispered. "But it's dangerous." The word hung between us, heavy with implication, yet we both knew the truth. Danger had never felt so compelling. Her fingers intertwined with mine, tentative at first, then with growing insistence, and I realized that the barriers we feared were merely illusions, constructs designed to keep us from embracing the very intensity that made us feel alive. That night, the waves became our backdrop for a dance of desire and restraint. We kissed with urgency, but also with care, aware that every movement carried both risk and revelation. And when the tide eventually pulled us apart, we lay on the sand, watching the moon reflect across the water, knowing that our connection had shifted irrevocably from flirtation to something far more consuming. The following week brought complications we could neither ignore nor avoid. The courthouse became a minefield of reminders that Lena's world was entirely separate from mine. Colleagues eyed her with scrutiny, some noting her preoccupation, others gossiping about her choice of companion at events. And yet the more scrutiny we faced, the stronger the bond became, as if opposition only heightened the intensity of our clandestine connection. We developed an intricate system of meetings, texts, and secret rendezvous, each encounter charged with both excitement and tension. Every coffee, every lunch, every sunset swim became a test of balance, between professional responsibility and personal desire, between societal expectation and individual longing. In each interaction, we discovered new layers of each other: her fears, her courage, her rare vulnerability, my persistence, my chaos, my capacity to nurture and inspire. One afternoon, Lena surprised me with an invitation to an art exhibit, an opportunity for both of us to step into another world. It was a world of color and abstraction, a place where interpretation mattered more than judgment, and here perhaps we were most ourselves. Walking through the gallery, I watched her eyes light up at canvases she could not analyze through precedent, where she could simply feel. Her hand brushed mine as we moved between displays, and the contact lingered longer than casual, a subtle yet undeniable acknowledgement of our shared intimacy. This is why we need these moments," she said softly, her voice carrying both wonder and realization. "To remember that life exists beyond rules, beyond responsibility." I nodded, recognizing in her words the very lesson the ocean had been teaching both of us: that freedom, trust, and courage are never granted. They are seized, often at the edge of fear and uncertainty. By the end of the evening, we found ourselves outside the gallery, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "Hope," she said, voice low and urgent, "I don't know how much longer I can keep this compartmentalized. I want more, I want us." Her confession sent a jolt through me. We had been walking a line, balancing desire against propriety, but now the line had blurred entirely. I felt my pulse quicken, a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension, knowing that every choice from this point forward would carry weight. Yet even as caution whispered in my mind, the truth of my heart was undeniable. I wanted her with a force that could no longer be restrained. We embraced, fully and without apology, in the quiet of the night, the hum of the city beneath our feet and the endless possibility of the horizon before us. In that embrace, all doubts, all fears, all societal expectations fell away. It was raw, it was dangerous, and it was profoundly liberating. The world had its rules, the courthouse had its demands, but here, in the intersection of surf, city, and heart, we were allowed to simply be. And in that moment, I understood something vital: that life's most transformative experiences do not come from safety, predictability, or control. They come from courage, from daring to leap into the unknown, from surrendering to the currents that propel us toward growth, love, and purpose. Waves of consequence. The days after our confession were nothing short of electric. yet tinged with a shadow of caution that neither of us could ignore. Every morning, Morno Valley Beach became our sanctuary and battlefield simultaneously, the waves a metaphor for the turbulent currents now flowing through our lives. Surfing together had always been about trust, but now trust extended far beyond the ocean. It was a fragile thread holding together two lives that by all logic should never intersect. Yet every brush of Lena's hand, every smile exchanged in the spray of salt water, reinforced the undeniable fact that this connection had moved beyond mere attraction. It was a force, inevitable and uncompromising, that neither of us could resist. As we paddled out, shoulder to shoulder, I felt the weight of unspoken questions pressing down. How long could we maintain this delicate balance, and what consequences awaited us if the currents of our lives collided too violently? Lena was becoming more than a student in the water. She was a mirror, reflecting both the vulnerabilities I tried to hide and the strengths I often overlooked. One morning, as the sun painted gold across the waves, she paused mid-paddle and looked at me with an intensity I had never seen. "Hope," she said, voice low, "I've been thinking. We can't live only in these moments. One day the waves will end and reality will come crashing in. We need to be ready." I nodded, understanding the gravity behind her words. The ocean was forgiving, but the world outside was less kind. Our private sanctuary offered freedom, but it could not erase the constraints of her position or my responsibilities. Still, the urgency in her tone stirred something fierce in me, a determination not to let fear dictate our lives. We had learned to ride the waves together. Now we had to learn to navigate the storms beyond the shore. The first real test came unexpectedly. A high-profile trial consumed Lena's attention, leaving her distracted and tense. I noticed it immediately during our surf lesson. Her movements were sharper, less fluid, and a weight hung in her eyes. We had learned to communicate without words, but that day the silence between us was heavy with unspoken worries. I offered gentle encouragement, a hand on her board, a quiet word, anything to remind her that she could trust not only the waves but me. After she fell from a particularly challenging wave, she surfaced with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. I pulled her close, steadying her board, feeling the familiar pulse of her heart against mine. "You're holding too much inside," I said softly. "Even here, even in the water, you can't let go." She looked at me, her usual composure slipping, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. "I don't know how," she admitted. "I'm not allowed to." That admission broke something open between us. For the first time, the professional mask I had known her to wear was gone, replaced by a human being who feared failure, who craved connection, who wanted to feel alive beyond titles and obligations. I realized then that our relationship was no longer just an affair of the heart. It had become a journey of healing, of growth, of discovery. The ocean, which had always taught lessons in patience and courage, now became a teacher in intimacy and understanding. Every wave she conquered mirrored the challenges she faced in her life: fear, judgment, responsibility, and the courage to rise despite them. Outside the surf, our secret world was equally intense. We stole moments between court sessions and surf lessons, sharing coffee in quiet corners, long walks along secluded piers, and text messages loaded with longing and reassurance. The city felt smaller when we were together, a backdrop to our growing bond. One afternoon, Lena invited me to a private dinner at a rooftop restaurant, the skyline glittering like distant stars. We sat in a quiet corner, our conversation wandering from trivialities to profound confessions. She told me about the loneliness of power, the isolation of being constantly measured, judged, and expected to excel without fail. I shared my fears of inadequacy, of running a business barely keeping afloat, of wondering whether I was truly making a difference. In that exchange, the gulf between our worlds seemed to shrink, replaced by a mutual recognition that life's challenges, no matter how different in form, were universal in weight and consequence. Then came the moment that would test both our courage and the boundaries we had so carefully navigated. During a high-profile charity gala, where the city's elite gathered to discuss causes that often mattered more in appearance than in action, Lena's professional and personal worlds collided in ways she could not control. A colleague, noticing her unusual focus on me, raised an eyebrow, whispered questions about propriety, and attempted to insert judgment into a situation far removed from its concern. Lena's composure wavered, the controlled exterior cracking under the weight of scrutiny. I watched from the periphery, helpless yet fiercely protective, recognizing the injustice of being forced to measure love and connection against societal expectations and professional pretense. In that moment, I understood the true challenge of our relationship. It was not just desire or timing, but the courage to exist authentically in a world that demanded performance, conformity, and restraint. Returning to the quiet of the beach that night, we allowed ourselves a rare reprieve from the pressures that surrounded us. The ocean reflected the moonlight, each wave a gentle whisper of reassurance, each swell a reminder of the lessons we had learned together. Lena, sitting on her board, looked at me with a vulnerability that made my heart ache. "I don't know if I can do both, be the judge everyone expects and the woman I want to be with," she confessed. I took her hand, holding it firmly, feeling the warmth and life that pulsed between us. "You can," I said, "but it requires the courage to fight for what matters, even when it's hard, even when it scares you. That's what surfing teaches, that's what life teaches, and I'll be here riding every wave with you." As the night deepened, I realized that our relationship had evolved into something far more profound than passion or infatuation. It was a partnership, a shared journey through the turbulent waters of life, love, and self-discovery. Every challenge we faced, every wave we rode, every stolen moment became a testament to resilience, trust, and courage. And in the quiet lull between tides, as the stars reflected on the water and our hands remained entwined, I understood that true connection required risk, honesty, and a willingness to embrace both the beauty and the danger of being fully alive. In that moment, nothing else mattered but the truth we had found in each other and the ocean, an unspoken promise that together we could navigate whatever storms lay ahead. Tides of conflict. The morning sun broke over Morno Valley Beach with a brilliance that should have felt comforting, yet tension hung in the air like an approaching storm. Lena arrived early, her presence simultaneously commanding and tender, the expression on her face a mixture of resolve and hidden worry. Our surfboards sat side by side, but the familiar rhythm between us was altered, disrupted by the weight of responsibilities and decisions neither of us could ignore. The ocean was calm, almost deceptively so, a stark contrast to the turbulence in our hearts. Lena's gaze, normally steady and unwavering, flickered with the pressure of the cases that awaited her and the personal conflict that threatened to undermine everything we had built. I could feel her hesitancy, the way she approached each wave with precision, but also a subtle rigidity that spoke of concern, fear, and the relentless pull of her professional life. As we paddled out, I noticed the way she studied the horizon with a mix of calculation and anticipation, as though trying to predict the behavior of both the waves and her own emotions. "Hope," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I don't know if I can keep balancing this, the world I'm supposed to live in versus the one I want." I reached for her hand, our fingers intertwining instinctively, a reminder that while the tide might shift, our bond remained unbroken. "Lena, the ocean doesn't forgive hesitation," I replied, voice steady. "It challenges you to trust, to surrender, and to act despite uncertainty. Life is no different. The only way to move forward is to ride the wave together." She smiled faintly, a mix of relief and lingering worry, and together we launched onto the first wave, the water carrying us in perfect unison. The day was a delicate dance between exhilaration and introspection. Each wave we rode seemed to echo the inner turbulence that neither of us could ignore, a reflection of the choices we faced beyond the water. Lena's professional life demanded perfection, scrutiny, and an adherence to rules that often felt suffocating. My world was chaotic, unpredictable, and under constant threat of failure. And yet, amidst these pressures, our connection offered a rare clarity, a lesson in resilience and courage. She fell several times, each wipe out a reminder that vulnerability was not weakness but strength, that risking failure was necessary for growth. I guided her patiently, offering advice, encouragement, and silent support, recognizing that this was no longer simply about surfing. It was about navigating the currents of life, love, and the courage to claim moments of freedom. Later that afternoon, we walked along the shoreline, water lapping at our ankles, the sun casting long shadows across the sand. Lena spoke of a recent case that had shaken her, one that forced her to confront the limits of the law, morality, and her own judgment. The intensity in her voice, the frustration behind her poised expression, revealed the depth of her empathy and the weight of her responsibility. "Sometimes I wonder if doing the right thing is ever enough," she admitted. "If the rules are enough." "If I'm enough," I stopped and turned to her, taking both of her hands in mine. "You are enough, Lena," I said firmly, meeting her gaze. "The courage to care, to feel, to act despite the pressure, that's what matters. And you're not alone, not here, not with me." For a long moment, silence settled between us, a quiet acknowledgement that our connection offered both sanctuary and strength, a reminder that even amidst conflict, love could be a guiding force. That evening brought new challenges as Lena's world intruded once again. A colleague, sharp and perceptive, had noticed the change in her demeanor, her distracted focus, and the subtle glow that suggested something personal had entered her professional sphere. The observation, casual in its delivery, was a threat to the careful balance we had maintained, a reminder that the boundaries separating our worlds were not only real but scrutinized. Lena confronted the situation with the poise and intellect I had come to admire, handling questions with grace, deflecting assumptions with controlled charm, yet I could see the tension in her shoulders, the fleeting moments when her composure threatened to fracture. The incident was a stark reminder that love, no matter how profound, often demanded sacrifice, courage, and the strength to navigate scrutiny without surrendering authenticity. Returning to the surf the next morning, Lena was quieter than usual, her usual energy tempered by reflection and concern. We paddled in silence, the rhythm of the waves carrying us forward, and I realized that this relationship required more than desire. It required patience, understanding, and a shared commitment to face challenges together. "Hope," she said at last, voice barely above the whisper of the waves. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want you in it." The simplicity of her statement, its raw honesty, struck me profoundly. We had entered this connection at a collision of worlds, yet here we were, choosing each other despite the uncertainty, despite the external pressures, despite the knowledge that the tides ahead would not always be kind. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Lena and I sat on our boards, drifting with the current, hands loosely intertwined. The ocean reflected the colors of the horizon, a metaphor for the possibilities that lay ahead. Every challenge we had faced, every wave conquered, every whispered confession and stolen touch had brought us closer, teaching us lessons in courage, trust, and the necessity of embracing life fully, even when the stakes were high. And in that quiet moment, as the waves carried us forward, I understood that love, like the sea, was both unpredictable and eternal, demanding surrender, patience, and a willingness to rise above fear. It was not safe, it was not simple, but it was real. And in its reality, we found the strength to continue to fight, to grow, and to ride every wave together, no matter how tumultuous the tide. The edge of the tide. The morning air carried a crispness that spoke of transition, the kind that prefaces change, and I could feel it in every fiber of my being as I arrived at Morno Valley Beach. Lena was already there, standing at the water's edge, a figure of quiet strength and contained energy, yet I could see the tension coiled within her movements. The sunrise lit her face, highlighting the determination behind her eyes, but there was an unmistakable weight there, one that had little to do with the waves and everything to do with the life she carried outside this sanctuary. Over the past weeks, our relationship had grown into something neither of us could deny, a bond forged by risk, trust, and shared vulnerability, yet it now faced its most significant trial. The world beyond the beach was insistent, demanding accountability, obedience, and restraint, and Lena could no longer keep the currents of her professional and personal life separate. I approached her cautiously, sensing that today, more than any day before, the ocean was a mirror of the uncertainty and power that flowed between us. We began the session in silence, paddling into the gentle swells, the waves acting as a shared language that needed no words. Each movement was deliberate, a reflection of our growing understanding of one another, yet beneath the surface was an undercurrent of unspoken questions. How far could we allow this connection to grow? How much risk could we shoulder before it threatened the very lives we were trying to balance? Lena's usual precision had softened, replaced by a fluidity that mirrored both her desire to surrender to the moment and the cautious awareness that boundaries existed beyond the water. When she fell off her board, as she inevitably would, she laughed, yet the sound was tinged with reflection rather than pure joy. I helped her back onto the board, my hand lingering longer than necessary, and in that touch we both recognized that the ocean was no longer simply a place to learn skills. It was a crucible, a test of courage, vulnerability, and authenticity. Later, when the tide carried us back to shore, Lena shared news that would change everything. A high-stakes case had reached a critical point, one that demanded her full attention and threatened to expose even the most subtle distraction. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of composure and vulnerability, but her eyes betrayed the fear that had begun to infiltrate her confidence. "Hope," she said, voice tight, "I don't know how to navigate this without compromising everything we've built." "Everything I stand for." I took her hands in mine, grounding her, reminding her that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. "Lena, you face challenges far greater than this," I reminded her. You've held lives, decisions, and consequences in your hands before. This is just another wave. We ride it together." Her eyes softened, and for a moment the fear was replaced by trust, an acknowledgement that even in the stormiest currents, we were not alone. That evening, we faced the first true collision of our worlds. At a courthouse function, one designed to showcase legal excellence and societal standing, whispers and subtle glances reminded Lena that perception mattered as much as reality. Colleagues and peers noticed her distracted focus, the gentle warmth she radiated in my presence, and while many assumed professional camaraderie, others questioned propriety. Lena handled the scrutiny with her usual grace, deflecting assumptions and maintaining her composure, yet I could see the tension beneath, a storm of loyalty, desire, and ethical dilemma raging silently. In private moments, she admitted that every smile, every exchange, every stolen glance risked her reputation, yet to abandon what she felt was impossible. It was a stark reminder that love, especially when forged in intensity and secrecy, demanded courage, resilience, and a willingness to face judgment without compromise. Back at the beach, the surf became a therapy, a release, a way to reconcile heart and mind. As we rode the waves side by side, I realized that the connection we shared had evolved into a partnership of survival and growth. Lena's control and my spontaneity no longer clashed. Instead, they harmonized, a reminder that balance comes not from rigidity but from understanding, trust, and the courage to embrace both strength and vulnerability. We talked openly, honestly about fears, hopes, and the future, acknowledging the stakes and the sacrifices yet to come. "Hope," she whispered as we rested on our boards amidst the rolling tide. "I don't know where this ends, but I know that I can't imagine going back to a life without this, without us." The honesty in her voice resonated deeply, an affirmation that connection, once forged in courage and trust, could transcend circumstance, expectation, and fear. As the day faded, painting the horizon with brilliant strokes of amber and rose, I understood that love, like the ocean, demanded surrender. It required embracing the unknown, confronting fear, and moving forward with intention, regardless of consequence. Our hands intertwined, hearts synchronized, and eyes locked. I knew that we were ready to face whatever storms awaited, whether in the courtroom, the world beyond the beach, or within ourselves. For in the tides, the risks, and the shared triumphs, we had discovered the most profound truth, that courage, trust, and unwavering belief in one another could transform chaos into clarity, struggle into growth, and fleeting moments into a lifetime of purpose. In that golden light, with the ocean as our witness, we stood together, ready to ride whatever waves came next, knowing that the journey we had embarked upon was far greater than passion. It was a testament to resilience, authenticity, and the power of choosing love amidst uncertainty. Riding the endless wave. The dawn broke over Morno Valley Beach with a quiet serenity, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions that had carried Lena and me through the past weeks. The ocean stretched endlessly before us, each wave glinting with promise and challenge, a reminder that life's currents were as unpredictable as they were beautiful. That morning, I watched Lena approach the water, her posture relaxed yet imbued with a quiet determination that had only grown stronger since our first encounter. There was a grace in her stride, a confidence born of vulnerability embraced rather than avoided, and it reminded me of the journey we had undertaken together, from casual acquaintances to confidants, from friends to lovers, from uncertain hearts to a bond forged in trust, courage, and resilience. The sun painted the sky with golds and pinks, reflecting on the water in a way that seemed almost symbolic, as if the universe itself acknowledged the transformation we had experienced together. We began our session as usual, paddling side by side into the rising swells, the rhythm of the waves mirroring the steady heartbeat of our connection. Every movement, every gesture spoke volumes of what we had shared, the stolen moments, the laughter, the silent support, the confessions of fear, and the exhilaration of freedom. Lena's skills had blossomed beyond what I could have imagined. Each wave she conquered a testament to her courage, adaptability, and trust, not only in herself but in me. As she rode a particularly challenging wave to shore, her smile was radiant, unrestrained, and genuine, a reflection of a woman who had learned to embrace both the power of the ocean and the power within herself. I realized in that moment that our love had become more than passion. It had evolved into inspiration, a shared journey of growth, discovery, and fearlessness. After the morning session, we sat on our boards in the calm of the shallows, the sun warming our skin and the waves lapping gently around us. Lena's hand found mine, fingers intertwining naturally, and I felt the profound weight of our shared experiences. "Hope," she said softly, her voice carrying both awe and certainty. I've spent so long trying to control everything, trying to live up to expectations that were never mine. But with you, I've learned that surrendering does mean weakness. It means courage. It means trusting life, trusting love, and trusting myself. Her words resonated deeply within me, echoing the lessons I had learned in her presence. That life's most meaningful victories are not found in perfection or control, but in vulnerability, authenticity, and the willingness to take risks, even when the outcome is uncertain. The following weeks tested us in ways we could not have anticipated. Lena faced high-profile legal challenges that demanded every ounce of her intellect, focus, and moral compass. My surf school struggled with unexpected financial strain, requiring ingenuity, perseverance, and patience. Yet despite these pressures, we found strength in one another, drawing courage and reassurance from the knowledge that we were not alone. Each meeting, whether in the office, the courtroom, or the surf, became a reaffirmation of our commitment to growth, love, and resilience. We navigated scrutiny, gossip, and societal expectation with grace, yet we never allowed external pressures to define the essence of our connection. Instead, we leaned into it, allowing challenges to strengthen rather than fracture the foundation we had built. One evening, after an exhausting day of legal battles and administrative chaos, Lena and I found ourselves back on the beach alone, the sky painted in fiery orange and violet hues. The ocean was calm, mirroring the rare peace we both felt in that moment. We walked hand in hand along the shore, reflecting on how far we had come, not only in our relationship but in our personal journeys. "I used to think strength meant never showing vulnerability," Lena said, her voice barely above the whisper of the waves. "But strength is knowing when to surrender, when to trust, and when to allow love to transform you." I nodded, recognizing the profound truth in her words. We had both faced fear, uncertainty, and the relentless pull of life's demands, yet in surrendering to trust, courage, and each other, we had discovered an unparalleled freedom. That night, as the stars emerged and the moon reflected on the gentle tide, Lena and I shared a quiet intimacy, a culmination of every lesson, every wave, every stolen moment that had brought us to this point. The kiss we shared was tender yet intense, a reflection of years' worth of suppressed longing, fears faced, and courage embraced. "Hope," she whispered against my lips. "I don't need certainty, I don't need perfection. I only need us and the courage to ride whatever waves come next." Her words were both a promise and a revelation, affirming the truth that love, like the ocean, demanded surrender, trust, and bravery. I held her close, feeling the warmth, strength, and vulnerability of a woman who had learned to embrace life fully. And I realized that in choosing one another, we had chosen growth, courage, and freedom. In the weeks and months that followed, our relationship continued to flourish, marked by a balance of love, respect, and inspiration. Lena navigated her career with renewed clarity and resilience, unafraid to integrate her personal happiness into the framework of her professional life. I learned to trust my own instincts, embrace my entrepreneurial journey with confidence, and recognize the power of love and connection as forces that could propel life forward. Together, we faced challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities for growth, each wave, each trial, each moment of uncertainty a testament to our shared courage. The ocean remained our sanctuary, a mirror for life's lessons, and a reminder that authenticity, trust, and resilience could transform fear into freedom, chaos into clarity, and fleeting moments into enduring joy. As I stood on the shore one morning, watching Lena paddle out to greet the sunrise, I felt a deep sense of gratitude, awe, and inspiration. We had discovered that life's most profound victories are not found in perfection, predictability, or control, but in the courage to trust, the willingness to embrace vulnerability, and the commitment to love fiercely and authentically. Together, we had navigated the turbulence of two very different worlds, learning that connection, authenticity, and courage could transcend circumstance and transform existence itself. And as the waves rolled in endlessly, carrying with them the promise of new beginnings, I understood a truth that would remain with me forever. That life, like the ocean, is at its most extraordinary when we dare to ride every wave, embrace every risk, and choose love in its purest, most fearless form.